So there are overall, I will start with some general considerations, and then I will move to particulars. There are three major, let me a little bit change. Yeah. There are three major branches of knowledge, and you, of course, know about this. Natural sciences, which study nature, social sciences, which study society, and the humanities, which study culture. And according to this scheme, we see that the first two branches, natural sciences and social sciences, they have some practical applications that are integrated in culture of knowledge. Technology in relation to natural sciences, which does what natural sciences study, transforms it into transformation of civilization. Politics is the practical branch of social sciences, transformation of society. But what is the practical branch of the humanity? And here we have big question mark. The humanities study culture, but what is the instrument, what is the field, the sphere which transforms culture on the basis of the humanities? We don't know. That's why I put it in question marks. Culture, the humanities, what would be here? Transformative humanities or what? And transformation of culture. So the transformative humanities or transhumanities, to abbreviate this, is the branch of the humanities that aim to transform the area of their studies. It is not scholarship as such, but the art of the humanities, built on the premises of humanistic scholarship. When offering a certain theory, a certain product of scholarship, we may want to ask if it is able to create something, to create a new cultural or linguistic practice, an artistic movement, a disciplinary field, a new institution, a new lifestyle, or a new intellectual community. That means that we are asking, like in sciences, we ask what practical application a certain scientific discovery can have. And technology, technica responds to this quest. In social sciences offer some generalizations, and then politics brings them into action. What about the humanities? That's why I suggest a new field that is called the transformative humanities. And I wrote about it in the book, The Transformative Humanities, a Manifesto. I'm afraid that you don't see, because of this black
No,
straps. You see everything because
we see everything. Yes, it's no problem. Yeah.
Okay. The book was published by Bloomsbury, academic, in New York and London. It's titled The Transformative Humanities, a Manifesto. It was published in 2012. And much of I will be saying is based on this book, but not everything, of course. I have developed many ideas since the book was published. And then I published a book in Russian «От знания к творчеству. Как гуманитарные науки могут изменять мир. From knowledge to creativity. How the humanities can change the world». 2016. In St. Petersburg. So, simply speaking, a task of literary scholarship, practical task, is to project new ways of writing, new forms of narrative and imagery. A task of linguistics is to create new science, lexical units, and grammatical models that expand the richness and expressive power of language. A task of philosophy is to construct new universals and universes, alternative worlds that will become tangible and habitable through the advance of technology. This is grand formulation of the task of the transformative humanities. We'll go to particular later. So, in distinction from the scholarly humanities, which study existing cultures, the transhumanity explore that which does not yet exist. They project and produce possible cultural objects and forms of activity, including new artistic and intellectual movements, new disciplines, research methodologies and philosophical systems, new styles of behavior, social rituals, semiotic codes, and intellectual trends. And of course, it's useful to remind that the transhumanities, though the term itself is very new, the transhumanities, transformative humanities, are not just a construct of our time, but have a long history of great accomplishments as illustrated by cultural communities such as the Italian humanists, German romantics, American transcendentalists, Italian futurists, Russian symbolists, French surrealists. These groups of people who not just researched or studied literature and not just created some novels, poems, but they created new trends, new sensibilities, new mentalities that expanded culture into the future. So it is the property of such cultural groups to generate their creative practices on the basis of certain theories. Now about the genre of manifesto, because it is often neglected, but probably the most important genre of the humanities and particularly of literary and artistic scholarship. The main insights of literary theory, as we study its innovative ideas and peak achievements, are found not in scholarly monographs or articles, but in literary manifestos. Precisely, literary manifestos produced those richness of concepts and terms that were used by the authors of monographs, of articles. So the primary product of theoretical imagination was expressed in manifestos, which are products of theoretical imagination rather than empirical study and scholarly scrutiny, such as manifestos of neoclassicism, romanticism, naturalism, futurism, surrealism, etc. These are the more important landmarks of literary development, and these landmarks are fixed in not in monographs. They come secondary, but primarily in manifestos. And what are manifestos? Manifestos are neither factual nor fictional. It's not scholarship, it's not fiction, it's not novel. This is a very different genre. They are formative. They aim to produce new literary facts rather than to register and analyze the facts, past and present. For example, I will cite you to give some sense of what is the modality of manifesto from Filippo Marinetti, the Futurist Manifesto. The decisive words here are want, will be, declare. That means volitional, practical, affirming rather than descriptive. We want to sing the love of danger, the habit of energy and rashness. The essential elements of our poetry will be courage, audacity, and revolt. We want to exalt movements of feverish sleeplessness, the double march, the perilous leap. We declare that the splendor of the world has been enriched by new beauty, the beauty of speed. We want to hymn the man at the wheel. This was the time, the beginning of the 20th century, when automobiles were just invented, and it was the dawn of new technical civilization. Looks at Russian symbolism. The major representatives of Russia's Silver Age, Dmitry Merezhkovsky, Vyacheslav Ivanov, Andrei Belый, they were very comprehensive, universal in their creative accomplishments. They were writers, poets, and novelists. They were theoreticians. They wrote studies of literature and the culture. But there is a third factor in their work, not to be found in pure writers such as Chekhov or Leskov or their contemporaries, or pure scholars such as Veselovsky or Potebnya, literary scholars. These, Merezhkovsky, Ivanov, Belый, they didn't simply produce literature like novels or poems, and didn't simply investigate it like scholars, but advanced the frontiers of literature based on the theoretical vision of its possibilities. They were inventors and founders of Russian symbolism. They created the program of symbolism as a cultural movement. And this is something no less important than novels or purely theoretical scholarship. Now, an important distinction. The transhumanities should be distinguished from applied humanities, which include arts management, librarianship, media and museum studies, archiving, digitalizing practices, and the like. The applied humanities aim to make culture accessible to the public, to enlighten and educate society at large, and to popularize the results of research. And this is not what the transformative humanities are. Those tasks are radically distinct from the invention of the languages, arts, concepts, disciplines, literary and intellectual movements. Transformative humanities are much more creative. And then I would like to remind you about the distinction between discovery and invention. Discovery is adaptation of our consciousness to reality. We discover something in reality, and therefore our consciousness, our knowledge accommodates itself to reality. Invention is adaptation of reality to our consciousness, just the opposite. We invent something that is not there, is not in nature, is not in society, is not in culture. We transform the reality in order to accommodate it, to adapt it to our consciousness. And humanistic inventions are as important for cultural evolution as technological inventions are for material progress. First of all, let's ask the question, where, under which existing academic categories can this constructive activity of theory be placed? Does it belong to the realm of scholarship or literary fiction? We know that at contemporary universities, there are, for example, departments of literary studies, of French or German literature, English literature, that study literature. And there are departments of creative writings where people are taught to write novels, poems, dramas, and so on. But where is the place for the transformative humanities, for the practical theories? If, for example, Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche would apply to a contemporary university and showing Thus Spake Zarathustra, his most important treatise of practical wisdom, of practical philosophy, would he be accepted to the position of a faculty member? No and never. Though there are hundreds of thousands of works of philosophical scholarship investigating Nietzsche, but Nietzsche himself, or Andrei Belый, or Dmitry Merezhkovsky would never be accepted to the faculty of contemporary academic institution, because there is no place in these institutions for such type of intellectual creativity. And I believe that inventorship as a mode of creativity should become as indispensable a companion to scholarship in the humanities as technology is to science. Now, to give you a more specific idea of inventions and inventorship, Similarly to the division of knowledge into three branches, inventions are of three kinds: scientific, technological, socio-political, and humanistic. Natural science, social sciences, and the humanities. And inventions are of the same three kinds: scientific, technological, like railroads, aviation, vaccination, antibiotics, astronautics, computing, internet. These are examples of inventions based on natural sciences. Socio-political invention, what is it? It is a new law, institution, procedure that radically change modes of social behavior and establish new forms of human interaction and organization. Examples of social inventions: constitutions, parliaments, trade unions, Boy Scouts, communism, Zionism, feminism, Red Cross, Olympic Games, United Nations. All these are social inventions. What are cultural inventions? Humanistic invention. Humanistic invention is a new ideal theory that contains the potential of its own realization in the form of cultural practices, intellectual movements, creative cooperations. And humanistic inventions can be divided according to the various cultural domains: language, literature, art, music, philosophy, psychology, religion. Here are examples of humanistic inventions. Language: Cyrillic and Armenian alphabets, artificial international languages, including Esperanto, orthographic reforms, neologisms and idioms coined by individual authors. These are just examples. I don't list all humanistic inventions in this area. In literature, neoclassicism, romanticism, the Gothic novel, detective story, naturalism, symbolism, futurism, surrealism. All these movements were invented, and we know the names of these inventors. We know the names of English romanticists or German romanticists, or we know the name of Edgar Poe, who invented detective story, and so on and so on. So literature is also full of inventions. Art: Impressionism, Cubism, Futurism, Suprematism, atonality, jazz, rock music, pop art, performance art, ready-mades, and so on. Philosophy: dialectics, utopia, the overman, invented by Nietzsche, semiotics, phenomenology, invented by Husserl, existentialism, postmodernism, deconstruction. Inventions. Psychology: psychoanalysis, behaviorism, stream of consciousness, Rorschach test, multiple intelligences. These are inventions. Religion: Kabbalah, Protestantism, Methodism, Deism, Pantheism, Mormonism, Baha'i. Inventions. And we know the founders, the inventors of these great new movements. These are not discoveries, these are inventions. And now I want to go to something more particular. And since our time is limited, I will focus first on the minimalist kind of inventions in the humanities, in language, and these are invention of new science, of new words, of new terms and concepts. I call this semergy. Semergy literally means the invention of science. There are three types of science activity: a combination of science, description of science, and formation of science. Most written or oral texts fall under the first heading. Be they the product of Shakespeare, Newton, or an illiterate person, they consist of words combined in their own way. So 99% of what you are dealing with in the world of text are combination of science. There is different type of activity: description of science. Books of grammar, dictionaries, linguistic studies, and manuals where words and the rules of their combination are described belong to the second type of science activity: description of science. And there is the third type, most interesting for us. The third type of science activity is the rarest of all three. It does not deal with the use or description of signs that already exist, but introduces new signs into language. Its focus is sign creation or semiurgy, from Greek semeion meaning sign and Greek urge meaning work. Such words as liturgy or dramaturgy or metallurgy, they contain this suffix. Production, doing. Thus, a semiurgy is the activity of generating new signs and their introduction into language. And I would like to refer you to George Orwell, you know, of course, 1984, where the totalitarian state is presented with its newspeak, a fictional language which is actually reduced to two words and two meanings. One is okay, hurrah, yes, and another is just no, done with it. Pure positivity and pure negativity. And for Orwell, this is an example of how totalitarian state, ideologically motivated state, reduces all the richness of language to just two groups of words, positive and negative. And this is, of course, great impoverishment of culture. In opposition to this, George Orwell suggested to enrich language with new words. And I will cite him. It's not from the novel 1984, it is from his article on words he wrote. At present, no, that he wrote it in the late 1930s with English being the richest of all world languages in terms of even simple number of words. If we compare, for example, the number of words in contemporary English and contemporary Russian, for example. In English, it's about 1 million words. In Russian, the most expensive dictionaries contain 150,000 words. That means 6-7 times less. So even in the richest English language, George Orwell found something lacking, some voids that need to be filled. He wrote, at present, the formation of new words is a slow process, and no new words are deliberately coined except as names for material objects. You know, the names of these brands, of new products. But it's not enough. Where are the new names for feelings, for emotions, for concepts, and so on? It would be quite feasible, writes Orwell, to invent a vocabulary perhaps amounting to several thousands of words which would deal with parts of our experience now practically unmeanable to language. What is wanted is several thousands of gifted but normal people who would give themselves to word invention as seriously as people now give themselves to Shakespearean research. Given this, I believe we could work wonders with language. So in addition to researchers of Shakespeare, or what already written, Orwell offers to invent new words and new meanings. And I attempted to do this with Russian language and English language. Beginning the year 2000, I started such a newsletter. In Russian, it is called Dar Slova, the gift of a word, projective lexicon of Russian language. And I published there about 3,000 words, mostly of my own coinage, and about 200 words were of the coinage of my correspondents. I published them also in the same newsletter. And I did the same with English language on a smaller scale. The book is called Predictionary, meaning two things. Predictionary means before dictionary, yes, predictionary, and it's also means predictionary, predict, to predicting new words appearing in language. And this is in English, and this is my book in Russian, Проективный словарь гуманитарных наук, the Projective Dictionary of the Humanities, where 440 entries are included in 14 thematic areas such as philosophy, linguistics, history, aesthetics, ethics, and so on. These are not everyday use words. These are concepts in the humanities. And some of these words, as I will tell you later, indeed came into language. I call these newly coined words protologisms. It's from Greek protos, meaning first, original, and Greek logos, meaning word. You ask, we have the word neologism, why do we need protologism? But neologism and protologism are different age of words. When you coin a new word, it is protologism. When it enters the language and becomes to be used by other people, it turns to become neologism, new word. For example, the word Sputnik, for example, yes, in Russian, coined in 1957, not the word itself, but the new meaning, the artificial satellite flying around the world. It was first, at the first point, it was protologism, then it immediately became neologism. So the protologism is a freshly minted word, not yet widely accepted. It is a verbal prototype which may eventually be adopted for public service or remain a whim of linguo-poetic imagination. Protologism and neologism are different age groups of verbal population. So protologism are babies and neologism are already more experienced, more established in language. And just an example of how the very word protologism, which was protologism itself, the word protologism was protologism at the point when it was invented, about maybe 25 years ago, I offered it. And now, if you look at Wikipedia, English Wikipedia, you find that it became neologism. It is used pretty widely. This article, this entry in Wikipedia says, protologism constitutes one stage in the development of neologism. A protologism is coined to fill a gap in the language with the hope of its becoming an accepted word. As an example, when the word protologism itself was coined in 2003 by the American literary theorist Mikhail Epstein, it was autological, an example of the thing it describes. That means that the word protologism itself was protologism. About the concept and its name, Epstein wrote, I suggest, and so on, what I already read you. And in the end, according to Epstein, every word in use started out as protologism, subsequently became a neologism, and then gradually grew to be part of the language. If you look at the frequency of the use of the term protologism, it's about, I don't remember exactly, I will cite some numbers later, I don't remember, 30,000 pages on the web or about this. So it became neologism. Just an example. I started publish English, my English neologisms, protologism in 2003. And there is such a site called Urban Dictionary, which invites you to submit new words. For example, so you can find its address here. One of the first words that I suggest is hapical. In Russian, it is счастьица, which relates to счастье in the same way as hapical relates to happiness. Hapical, happy plus diminutive suffix, like in particle, icicle, a particle of happiness, the smallest unit of happiness, a single happy occurrence or a momentary feeling of happiness. And after every definition of a new word, I am offering an example of its possible usage in italics. There is no happiness in this world, but there are hapicals. Sometimes we can catch them, fleeting and unpredictable as they are. Or another example, like photons, hapicals have zero mass at rest, the inertial mass that we identify with happiness. Happicals just flash and go out in passing. They may be as transitory as a fragrance in the air, or a yellow falling leaf, or a glance of a passerby on the street. Happicals make life worth living even in the absence of stable happiness. And when you become familiar with this word, you come to understand something that without a specific word, hapical, is somehow familiar to you. But by acquiring verbal form, it becomes more clear for you. What are you experiencing at this moment? It's not happiness maybe, but it is a hapical. Это несчастье еще, это частица. И this is what language is for, to articulate our feelings, our thoughts, to make them clear to ourselves, and therefore to form our behavior. I just gave you one example of protologism. And I would like to give you some more examples in the sphere of sociopolitical terminology. I published a book called «Перед концом истории. Грани русского антимира». Before the end of history, with question mark, the aspects of Russian anti-world. Anti-world, not Russian world, but anti-world. It was first published, by the way, on the eve of the first anniversary of Russia's aggression against Ukraine in January 2023 under the title Русский антимир. And it was published first in the United States, and then it came out in Kiev. So there is the edition of this book in Kiev in the typography of Oleg Fedorov in Kiev. And there, in this book, I am using some words that help to understand contemporary socio-political trends and situation. For example, I coined the term schizofascism, schizofascism. I coined it in 2015, earlier, but it was published first in 2015 in my book от совка к бабку, политика на грани гротеска. From совок to babok. Babok is Dostoevsky's image of death. And it was published in Russian in the United States, and then it was published in Ukraine in Ukrainian translation, so you can find it. And there, for the first time, I used this term schizofascism or schizofascism. What is schizofascism? It is fascism under the guise of the fight against fascism, like those ideologies of Putin's regime are pretending that they are fighting against fascism, against Nazism. It is schizophrenic component in their ideology. Fascism itself is an integral worldview that combines the theory of ethnic or racial superiority, imperialism, nationalism, xenophobia, anti-democratism, and anti-liberalism. Schizofascism is a split worldview, a caricature of fascism, except that it is a serious, dangerous, and aggressive caricature. Schizofascism manifests itself as a hysterical hatred for freedom, democracy, everything foreign, as well as in the hunt for the enemies and traitors among one's own people. However, this chauvinist worldview now finds itself suffering a schizophrenic schism with its desire to enjoy the very benefits the enemy provides: real estate abroad, the privilege of giving your children an education in gay rope and Yankostan. This is, as you know, are denigrating names of Europe and the United States in the jargon of Putin's ideologies, concealing your accounts in foreign banks, and so on. So this term, when offered, contains some useful explanation of what makes contemporary Russian fascism akin to fascism as such, and what makes it different from classical fascism by being schizophrenically split. Another term, concept offered is святобесие, or can be translated as sanctimony, or better sanctifury. The fury based on allegedly religious feelings. Святобесие, an obsession with one's own holiness, or the holiness of one's principles and convictions. By the way, this is how Tredyakovsky, one of earlier Russian poets of the 18th century, once proposed to translate fanaticism from French. The word didn't catch up then, but now it has a new chance. Святобесие, but in fact, святобесие and fanaticism are different phenomena. A fanatic fervently believes in God and is ready to sacrifice himself for him. But святобесие, which we see in many speeches of, for example, Patriarch Kirill and so on, святобесие is an outburst of hatred and pride under the guise of defending sacred things. We have much aggression in us, and the easiest way to justify and discharge it is to fall into rage and fury, not for ourselves, not for our small pains and grievances, resentments, but for something absolutely great and holy. Then one can flog, burn, execute, and allow oneself this with a clear consciousness, because it is святобесие. And this reminds us святозлобие from Bloch's poem The Twelve. Черная злоба, святая злоба, святозлобие. Malice and fury as an energy of destruction has many trigger mechanisms, but the most dangerous of them, and leading to the greatest number of victims, is fury in the name of the holy, ready to crush everything in its path. And the last word that you can also find in this book, though it was coined earlier, соворность, which imitates соборность. Соборность, as you probably know, translated into English as conciliarity, is Orthodox ideal of spiritual unity where individuals are mystically bonded in common spirit while maintaining personal freedom without rigid laws or hierarchy. And crimplicity, this is the best translation I could get in English for соборность, from the root war, thief, cossiveness, so to say, соборность. Perverted inversion of conciliarity, a system of criminal mutual guarantee where society bonds through shared law breaking. Those who follow laws are seen as outsiders, potential traitors. In соборность, in crimplicity, one gains acceptance only by participating in corruption, giving bribes, turning blind eyes to violations. This creates an anti-society where the collective is united not by spiritual communion, but by complicity in crime. While conciliarity represents voluntary spiritual unity, crimplicity operates through negative initiation. You are socialized by getting dirty, which is the common bond in contemporary Russian Federation. The sacred ideal of mystical togetherness degrades into its demonic double, collective criminal bonding. So I just clarify these three concepts, schizopascism, святобесие и соборность, to demonstrate how language can be active, may be formative, and may respond in progressive way to the needs of time. But it's not only the only sphere, of course, of semiurgy. Semiurgy cannot be confined to the production of new signifiers. Rather, it deals with the signifieds as well and presupposes meaning formation or concept construction. Every new word brings about a new meaning, and with it a possibility of new understanding and a new action. people's conduct is guided by the meaning of words. We ask ourselves, let's move into sphere of intimacy, of personal feeling. We ask ourselves, is the feeling we are experiencing love or not love? Or is it more accurate to call this feeling compassion or friendship or lust or respect or gratitude? Having decided on the exact word for our feeling, we act in accordance with its meaning. We get married or divorced, meet or leave, confess our love or lack of love, and so on. And of course, our love dictionary, love vocabulary also needs some expansion. And some words in my Dar Slovo, the gift of the word, the projective dictionary of Russian language and English language are devoted to these relationships, the sphere of love. I will cite some. Amor, for example, from Latin amor, love, and Latin mors, death. The mixed love-death instinct, the union of eros and thanatos, or transformation of one into another, a cruel passion destroying the loved one and or the lover. Amor is the most common theme of European literature, from Tristan and Isolde to Oscar Wilde's The Ballad of Reading Gaol, where he writes very famously, and all men kill the thing they love. This is the word I coined in 2003. Dislove, you know the verb dislike, like, dislike. But if there is the expression of much stronger feeling, not like but love, why not to be the verb dislove? To dislove, to have a deep, deep negative feeling, attraction through aversion to somebody. Dislove is a deeper feeling than dislike, a matter of personal relationship rather than taste. Disloving implies a strong negative emotional connection to its human object. And an example of usage, I dislove my ex-husband. I don't dislike him. I would never marry someone I simply dislike. But she married him, and now she dislikes. Equiphilia, равнолюбие in Russian, indiscriminate love of many persons or things. Equiphilia is not the same as indifference. Equal love to many doesn't mean love at all. An example, you probably know the famous Chekhov story, Dushenka, where she loves all her husbands, and this is an example of равнолюбие. Example, Mary has hard time making up her mind. Not that she is indifferent to her admirers, but she is now at the point of equiphilia. And other verbs, I will not go to all of them. For example, philophilia, love for life's sake. Todd is a philophile. He doesn't love anybody in particular. He just enjoys being in love. Or philophobia, a fear of love and intimacy. More general concepts which chronocide as the murder of time, the violent interruption of historical succession and continuity. The word is neologism, combining the Greek chronos with Latin sedum, from sedere to slay, analogous to terms like genocide, homicide, and parricide, chronocide. Examples. Communism destroys traditions in its pursuit of visionary future, and fascism seeks to bind society to a mythic past. Both are chronocidal in nature. And now, if you look, for example, in Google, you will Google this word, you will find tens of thousands of pages where this word is used, chronocide. So it became neologism, or maybe it became even word in the language, one of the concepts describing this violent interruption of time's succession. Or intellect, especially actual today with artificial intelligence coming to integrate with natural intelligence, intellect, contraction of prefix sin and the root intellect. In Russian, I call it sorazum, the same as synintellect. Collective mind, co-mind, which is formed by an integration of individual consciousness through a network of electronic communications, the highest stage in the creation of an all-human neuroquantum brain. And some words that I coined, such as Danch, Lovedom, chronocyte, or intellect, have been gradually turning into neologism, as indicated by tens of thousands of web pages where they are used. But the majority of newly minted words remain babies, protologism. This is, of course, not every word, and even the minority of words happen to enter the language. I will give an example of the frequency of their usage. Danch. This is the word I also introduced. It is the meal between lunch and dinner. So it combines, it's lunch and dinner, danch. D from dinner and anch from lunch. A meal that is eaten between lunch and dinner. And I'm citing, by the way, Collins' English dictionary. It is one of the most authoritative dictionaries of English language, along with Oxford Dictionary. And if you Google this word Dutch, you will find that 150,000 pages are where this word is used. And if you want to locate my, so to say, contribution, the author's contribution, there are 5,600 words, pages where the word Dutch is connected with the surname Epstein. And this is very good, because this means that this word has already gone far from its author, that it is used independently of Mikhail Epstein. It is used by itself, as it is, without any connection to the inventor. Or the word trans culture. I will not explain now the difference. You could look for yourself. 89,000 and 3,400 next to Epstein. And the adjective transcultural, which I publicized in my book, Transcultural Experiments of 1999, it's used even more often, 3,400,000 and 78,000 next to Epstein. Lovedom, the kingdom of love, 46,000 pages. Intellect, 38. Chronocyte, 33. Materialism, a trend, a direction in poetry and in visual art, 31, and so on. So this is an example of how protologisms become neologisms and words in the vocabulary. And this is part of transformative humanities, transformative linguistics, which does not simply describe what is in language, the lexical meanings of the word, the system of words in the vocabulary, but offers new units. It's an example of semergy. And now I want to go to the higher levels of invention. Invention in ethics, for example. What can be transformative humanities regarding such field as ethics? You know the golden rule. The golden rule is one of the most universal moral principles. And it is formulated in Matthew: do to others what you would have them do to you. And there is negative or silver rule formulation: don't do to others what you wouldn't want done to yourself. At the basis of the golden rule lies the reversibility of moral subjects. You should put yourself in somebody else's place, treating others as you wish them to treat you, or act so that your behavior could serve as a standard for all. By the way, Kantian categorical imperative is also one of the offspring of this golden rule. Do in such a way as to make the rule of your behavior possible for all people, possible to fulfill for all people. So this is the very essence of the classical understanding of morality. You are an object of the same actions that you perform as a subject. But we know some different approaches, and one that is found also in the New Testament. The Apostle Paul taught about the diversity of spiritual gifts. One is granted faith, another the word of knowledge, yet another the gifts of healing or speaking in tongues. It is from the first epistle to Corinthians. This diversity of gifts lies at the basis of what I called differential ethics, which can be summarized in the following formulation. The best action is that through which the maximal capacity of one matches the maximal needs of others. And this is something different from the golden rule. I call it diamond rule. Diamond rule because it consists of very sharp edges. And this edge is the individuality of the ethical subject, of the ethical actor, agent, the one who is called to perform a certain action. What kind of action? I will give you an example of Marina Tsvetaeva, a great Russian poet who, as an emigre, had to earn her living by daily labor. She confessed, I am not a parasite because I work, and I want to do nothing but work, but to do my own work, not somebody else's. It's a very beautiful and precise definition. To do my own work, not somebody else's. One's own work is an important concept. It refers to the work that is entrusted to me and that nobody can fulfill better than I. Other people could translate poetry, write weekly reviews, or carry heavy things better than Tsvetaeva could. But writing poetry was her work, her duty, her vocation. And therefore, I assume morality is not isolated from individual gifts. Faithfulness to one's gift is the most demanding duty. And let's take this example more broadly. Let's take a violinist. He serves people best not when mobile is to the work front, he takes up a shovel or axe, but when he wields his bow. Certainly, a violinist could help society by cutting trees for firewood, or digging vegetable patches, but most people, regardless of their gifts, can cut trees and dig. Only in extreme times, and now probably this is the time for Ukraine, when human resources are scarce and the ability to cut trees or dig becomes a rare gift, is the violinist morally obliged to do what no one else can do. So to go and dig, to go and cut, and so on. Here, his obligation is no longer social, but purely ethical. He acts not for society as a whole, represented by government or law, but for the cold, for the hungry, and for the perishing. Thus, I propose a postulate that doesn't annul the universal character of the golden rule, but rather sets a diamond stone of individual gift in its golden frame. Do that which anyone, including yourself, could wish for, and which no one else but you can do. The criterion of individual gift or individual vocation. The best action is that which corresponds to the needs of the largest number and the capacities of the smallest number of people. This is an important distinction introduced into the golden rule. Capacities of the smallest number of people. It is an action whose subject would want to become its object, and at the same time an action that only that subject can perform. The first criterion is the golden universality of a moral act, while the second is its diamond-like uniqueness. Ethics requires that both criteria be present. Act in such a way that you yourself would want to become the object of your actions, but no one else could be their subject. It is moral to do for others what no one else but you can do, to be for others, but not like others. To be moral is to nurture one's selfhood while conquering one's selfishness. You can talk about transformative humanities in terms of inventing new disciplines. For example, one discipline I offered after the events 9/11 in New York, when these Twin Towers were crashed by Muslim terrorists, horology, the discipline, from Latin horror to bristle with fear and logic, study of, is horology is the is the science of civilization, is the study of civilization's self-destructive potential. The analysis of how human achievements, technologies, infrastructures, and symbolic systems harbor within themselves the means of their own undoing. It is the discipline that investigates not terror as a political act, but horror as the existential condition, the state of civilization in dread of itself, haunted by the possibility that any progress contains the seeds of catastrophe. It sees civilization as a system of self-assembled traps, self-replicating threats, and auto-destructive mechanisms. It's not what is usually associated with ecological or environmental concerns, which refer to civilization's threat to nature. Horology refers to these threats of civilization to itself, born from itself. And horology and 9/11. 9/11 revealed not just terror as attack, but horror as a condition. It's interesting that the terrorists use no weapons beyond the achievement of civilization, airplanes and skyscrapers, and media, of course. This is the essence of horology, when progress becomes the architecture of collapse. The World Trade Center attack was a mass of terror, planes plus towers, mutual annihilation. And so 9/11 marked a shift from external threats to internal systemic vulnerability. The higher the skyscraper of civilization, the more fragile its foundation. Horology invites us to study this paradox, how human creations harbor their own undoing. And one of the first anticipations of horology is, of course, Goethe's Faust, where Faust, the ultimate civilization, builder commends nature, erects dikes and dreams of utopia, yet Mephistopheles reveals the irony. All his striving serves the forces of ruin. Okay, I will probably end almost here. I was going to talk about philosophy, and even to demonstrate you the image that I did with the help of artificial intelligence. This is the image of Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, or Athens in Greek, and Minerva in Roman mythology. And usually its attribute is owl, because as Hegel used to say, philosophy is coming in the end of the day, when all things are accomplished, and then comes philosopher and starts to meditate of what happened, like Hegel himself, who tried to generalize about the workings of world spirit during 2000 years of civilization. But my point is that another attribute of Minerva is a rooster. Here is a very new, it's also part of Transformative Humanities, now in visual art and the art of emblematics, because it is the rooster who proclaims a new creative day, and who cries in the dawn, and refers to the future rather than to the past, unlike the owl. And my point is that philosophy, especially in the time of constructing multiple virtual worlds, and in the time of artificial intelligence, philosophy should be more addressed to the future and becomes a model of multiverse, of multiple worlds being built by ontological and epistemological categories. And there are universities already which try to combine philosophical studies and informational technology departments in this attempt to connect IT, information technologies, with history and with philosophy department. But I will have to drop it because of time concerns. I will come directly to the conclusion. The task of scientific and academic institution institution is not simply the acquisition of knowledge, but intellectual activity in the forms of both knowledge and thinking. And knowledge is about what is, and thinking is what about is not yet. Thinking is the way to produce some concept and ideas that transform reality, whereas knowledge is knowledge of reality as it is. This includes the establishment and systematization of existing facts and principles, and two, and this is most important in our context, the production of new concepts and ideas that are fruitful for the development of civilization. Academia needs constructive minds in the humanities no less than these constructive minds need academia, where they are not admitted so far. As I mentioned, the example with Nietzsche. Whereas one of the greatest American philosophers of the 20th century, Alfred North Whitehead, who was the chair of philosophy department at Harvard, he said, the task of the university is the creation of the future, so far as rational thought and civilized modes of appreciation can affect the issue. I assume that humanistic inventorship, even more directly than humanistic scholarship, shapes our future. And I also suggested such a curriculum, such a system of disciplines within contemporary universities, which I called pillar. You probably know what STEM means. Here it is STEM. STEM is a program and curriculum educated students in 4 specific disciplines: science, technology, engineering, and math. It's an interdisciplinary approach in hard sciences. STEM, science, abbreviation, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I would suggest pillar. Pillar is abbreviation for 6 grounding humanistic disciplines: philosophy, intellectual history, language, literature, art, and religion. Pillar. Pillar. Pillar addresses the concern that these 6 subjects are often taught in isolation rather than, as they ought to be, in an integrated curriculum. And also they could be formulated, the integrated curriculum for social sciences, SHAPE, sociology, history, anthropology, politics, economics. So rather than teach the 6 humanistic disciplines as separate and discrete subjects, Pillar integrates them into a cohesive learning paradigm based on real-world and future-oriented applications. But this is the task that should be set and solved in the future. And finally, at this moment in history, when Ukraine faces immense challenges, the transformative humanities carry special relevance. They remind us that culture is not just memory, but invention, not only survival, but imagination. Through creative thinking, new words, new ideas, new cultural movements, the nation can shape its own future beyond the limits imposed by war and destruction. The transformative humanities invite us all, scholars, writers, artists, thinkers, to become co-creators of a world where resilience, freedom, and creativity shape what is to come. Thank you, and I'm ready and will be glad to handle your questions.
You may ready. Okay. We go. It's yeah, just because it's running on. But it's on, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you call the Victor? Thank you, Mikhail, for your presentation. I've already took 2 words from your. Oh, right now, can you hear us properly? Can you hear us? You can't. Did you hear me when I was a bit?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
So when I'm talking into microphone, that's fine. That's not okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's. Who has the questions? Anyone would like to? Probably it's better to come here. Sorry for
Maybe
not microphone. It doesn't.
microphone for another for our audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for your lecture. I will try to discuss with you to comment your term schizofascism, because I think that every political regime has contradictions, especially every authoritarian regime. Nearly I read the book by Australian historians Stargard about mobilization nation, about German civil society in the period of the Second War, and it's obviously that the Nazi regime in Germany was a contradiction like a contemporary Russian political regime. And maybe it's normal for authoritarian and totalitarian regime to be to have some schizoid elements. And what do you think about this? It is correct to name especially Russian regime schizofascism, because every fascism is schizo. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. It's a matter of subtleties, and I'm not going to delve into history, but what clearly marks contemporary Russian fascism is that it is based on contradiction between the proclaimed ideology of hatred for the West and Western values, Europe, the United States, and which I think is rather unprecedented, even in the time of communism. I mean, other totalitarian system. And I think in German Nazist period, there was no such schizophrenic usage of Western resources for the well-being of the ruling class as it is in contemporary Russia. This is so demonstrable, so challenging the basis of their own ideology, that I think that schizofascism is very distinctively addressed to this split into Russian mentality of today. And by the way, a famous American historian, Timothy Snyder, started to use this term. I don't know whether directly borrowed from me, but later than me. He started to use it in 2017, I think, whereas I first used this term in 2015. But he also terms this regime schizofascism.
Yeah, Krisha.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Krisha Kops, and I have two related questions concerning language. So my first question would be, instead of inventing all these words, wouldn't it also be advantageful to look at other languages and learn certain terms and how they could migrate into another language which already exists, and thereby also learning something about other cultures, circles? That would be my first question. And concerning, related to that, of course, we are aware how, in a political context, how words disappear. Thinking about how Russia prohibits certain words. And I also remember how back in the Maldives, how the word for peaceful protest was just disappearing from the dictionary. Now, we're very clear about the power structures behind it, regime prohibiting those words. But who is then responsible for creating new words? Is it only academics and intellectuals? How is the power structure behind that I would be interested in? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Of course, it's very useful to look at cross-fertilization of languages and what one language can bring to another. But since we are limited people with our natural intelligence, now we acquired a different instrument of intellectual expansion, artificial intelligence, which I have been using in the last 2-3 years very actively, which knows all existing languages and can help find words in other languages. But the new terms and concepts are produced, I would say, organically from the situation in which you are. I was born in Russia. I lived 40 years in Russia. Russian is my native language, and I observed the situation. I emigrated from Russia 35 years ago, but of course, I'm observing what is going on in this country and trying to use its own language for its deconstruction, for its stirring some oppositional intellectual movement within this social and cultural milieu. That's why I'm using for this socio-political terms like sovorность or святобесие or schizopashism, Russian, mostly Russian language, also of course international morphemes coming from Greek and Latin, or coming from English, which becomes international language of our days. So I think that creating new words rather than looking them in, I don't know, Hungarian or Spanish or some other language is a more creative way, though one doesn't exclude the other. As for who is entitled to produce these words, everybody is entitled. Everybody, and this could be a journalist, it could be a writer, it could be a humanistic scholar, but the very activity of this type is, as I termed it, transhumanistic. That means it doesn't just study the language, but produces new forms of language. And I find this activity most lacking in contemporary world and in most need to, and this is the accent, the focus of my presentation, academic assimilation of this type of activity in academia. And as a representative of this academia, I taught at Emory University in Atlanta, where I live for 33 years. This is my, so to say, basic assumption that we need to adopt these modes of thinking in academia, not just in journalism.
Thank you, Max.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for your inspiring talk. I have two related questions as well, though you might have already cleared some of those issues up. My first question concerns the necessity for what you call the transhumanities. I wonder, aren't we already living in a transhumanities world? Isn't any true poetry transhumanistic, any true art transhumanistic in the sense that it's involved in acts of poiesis, like acts of making? Like Shakespeare created an incredible amount of word in the English language. And I guess that people create works just as they go along. So why delegate that kind of activity to centralized university departments where professionalized semiurges craft words for us? I feel like isn't this any happening anyhow? And then the second question is connected to that, namely, isn't there also a danger in the modality of the manifesto? For example, the manifesto you cited, Marinetti's futurist manifesto, inspired Italian fascism and helped bring about this idea that societies can be just malleable and shaped according to the wish of some futurist designer, which led to chronocide and genocide and terrible things. So shouldn't we also be a little bit aware of the dangers of the manifesto modality?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Regarding your first question, well, of course, words are invented and formed in poetry and in journalism and so on and so on. But it's not transhumanities, you know. I talked about the new synergy, the invention of new science, of new principles, of new intellectual movements on the basis of scholarship. That's why I emphasized the relations of transhumanities to the humanities is the same as technology to science or politics to social sciences. Of course, politicians give birth to many ideas, but I would like social scientists, based on their knowledge, on their scholarship, also to produce new ideas based on their occupation, and the same for the humanities. So transhumanities is not what Shakespeare did. Again, I emphasize the academic, university-oriented themes, agenda of my presentation. It is what university, I am very concerned about the fate of university and about the fate of the humanities, which may become an extinct species, you know, at American universities, because many programs now, especially in the epoch of Trump, are excluded from the universities, and we need, desperately need, some practical outcome of the humanistic thinking, including the inauguration of the schools of transformative humanities or humanistic technologies. Like there are engineering schools, or there are schools of law, schools of theology. In the same way, I believe, I didn't develop in full my project, so to say. We desperately need some practical branches at the university levels. And as I understand, this is the milieu to which I am addressing now. You are concerned about transformation of the university, about creating some new academic organizations or institutions. That's why I focused on this. What was the other question? Yes, about Marinetti. Yes, of course, a manifesto or whatever, a story, a novel, a poem can serve very different goals. There are fascist poetry and fascist novels and so on and so on. But Marinetti's manifesto, produced, I think, in 1909, it is example, just an example. I could cite another manifesto, example of this modality, which is common to all manifestos. And again, any genre can serve to any ideological purpose. I was focusing on the modality of manifesto, where volitional formulas, and the same is true of symbolist manifesto, surrealist manifesto, I could cite any of them. So in this example, it is the genre of manifesto is important. But if we judge the genre only by the variety of its ideological applications, we are at a dead end. Thank you.
So, greetings, and I have a question to you as a philosopher of language. So, if we talk about Ukraine, we have been scared for centuries of losing our language, and to have a language which is ours for every country is important, because we know that language creates our perception and consciousness in some way, because like it's known that some definitions, they do not exist in particular language, and some definitions, they do exist in different languages. So, and for Ukraine, it's like not a new story. But what about the Russian language? If the politics of this schizophysicism and Putin's, and maybe someone who will be after Putin will continue, Do you think can this period of time distort and change the perception of the Russian language if the totalitarianism and this like evil propaganda will be the association, and maybe will society be able to be maybe different while they talk Russian language if we compare it to like 100 years ago?
Mm-hmm. If I understand you correctly, you are asking about the fate of Russian language as a consequence of contemporary political...
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like a risk to be afraid for example, if I were Russian, would I think that my children will have a different perception of life according to what, language is about? Something like this. Thank you.
Yeah, I perfectly understand your concern, and this is my concern as well. What I believe is going on in with Russian society is its suicide, and the suicide of language as well. And I wrote about it extensively in my book, Russian Anti-World. Indeed, I feel big danger for language, if we are concerned now with language, though it is not our biggest concern probably. We should be more concerned about human lives and so on and so on. But of course, degradation of language cannot but be observed in contemporary Russian, so to say, Russian politically landscape and political landscape. And as for me, part of why I retired 2 years ago was that I didn't want to teach Russian culture anymore. Not that I not appreciate Russian culture, 19th century, 20th century, and whatever is going on in Russian culture of today. There are brilliant writers and poets, and the majority of them are now outside of Russia. But speaking even about Dostoevsky or Chekhov, ignoring what is going on with their heirs, with the successors of their language, is impossible. And the very word Russian sounded problematically. When you teach something, you want to teach something worthy of learning, worthy of imitation. And I couldn't feel the same way after 2022. Actually, even after aggression of Russia into Georgia 2008, I felt that something frightening is going on with the very concept of Russia. The sound of the word Russian, Русский, and it is a real problem. It's a real problem. Because it is my native language, I try to do my best developing its creative potential, publishing these newsletters and publishing articles and books on creative development of Russian language, of Russian literary imagination, about postmodernism in Russia. Many books on Russian literature, and 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I turned to more general issues, theoretical, artificial intelligence, general problems of culture. It's very painful to be engaged in Russian studies today, indeed.
Thank you. I've already started to tell, but probably because of technical details problems, you didn't hear it. But I really like 2 words you created, love them and chronocide. And probably I will use it in my, I'll try to use it in my daily routine dictionary. But I also have like 2 questions that are connected to each other. The first one, what is the door for you through which the scientists can enter this realm of creating new word or new discipline? So, like, how can we cultivate this capacity of creating this new forms? And the second one that is connected, what can we do as a group of young researchers together to step into this realm of creating new words, new forms, and in order to transform the reality using this approach?
Well, since you are very young, I understand that you are just emerging, yes? This is the earliest stage of your formation as a group, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So, first of all, I think it's important to understand what is your goal. Do you want to engage in the traditional humanities? Humanities that study certain languages, certain cultures, certain literatures in objective way as was done in the humanities for centuries. Or you want to adopt more creative, more potentialist, possibilist approach to this realm. That means to combine a study of something with understanding what is lacking in the system which you study. For example, what is lacking, for example, in Russian culture? Which concepts are lacking? For example, I introduced the term своеправие in Russian. There is such a term in English, self-righteousness. The idea that you are always right. Whatever you say, you are right. And strangely enough, such concept, such term was absent in Russian culture because it considers itself, people consider themselves to be always right, you know. And an example of this is the dream of Raskolnikov in the epilogue of Crime and Punishment, where he sees all people infected by a very grave disease. Everybody considered themselves, it was virus, considered themselves to be right. And by introducing this, this is the specific sickness of Russian culture. It's pride, your великодержавность, this almightiness, and so on. So by introducing this concept, you help to, so to say, to articulate the blind spot in this culture, you know, to help to understand some qualities which it is not so far entitled to understand, to advance its, to enhance its self-consciousness. And I think many blind spots of this kind are in Ukrainian language, in Ukrainian culture, especially as it is emerging from the condition where it was enslaved by the empire, yes, and limited in its creative impulses by the Russian Empire, Soviet Empire. So I think at this stage it's very important not just to focus on, so to say, neutral and objective study of what is, but to aspire for what can be, for what might be, you see? And this is a very important modality. I wrote a book, it is published in Russian, it is published in English, called The Philosophy of the Possible, about the modality of the possible, not of what is and what, not what is actual, and not what is necessary, but what is possible. And this possibilist modality, I think, should penetrate, this is my long-winding argument in this book. Again, it's available in Russian, it's available in English. And I think that we should start asking ourselves, who are we? Are we pure scholars in the mode which are prepared by Western universities, or as a newly emerging culture, newly emerging field of national self-awareness, we want to make something different, to be to be for others, but not like others, according to this diamond rule that I formulated. And people have very different vocations. Maybe the majority of people in these groups are called for just scholarship, and it is perfectly okay, you see. But if there are some who are more enticed by this vision of some practical utilization of the humanities, working for humanistic technologies, for transformative humanities, this is the platform that can unite you. So.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time and for your contribution. It was fruitful, and for sure it will help too, because today is first day of our school. So your contribution will help us to go through this week. And yeah, greetings from Uzhhorod, from Ukraine.
Thank you. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I have a book, lectures on transhumanities. I didn't include it in my presentation, but it is probably the best. It is published in Russian, but it is probably the best introduction in this set of ideas. I will send you the link to it. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we will share among us. Okay. So yeah, have a good day.
Thank you, and great success to your school. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.